Hello everyone. In our previous video, we discussed the Government of India Act 1858 and Indian Council Act of 1861. And today we'll discuss the two council acts, that is Act of 1892 and Indian Council Act of 1909, which is also known as Morley-Minto Reform. So first we'll look about Indian Council Act of 1892. Guys, if you want, you can note it down also, or you can refer to some book for better understanding. So the first provision of Indian Council Act of 1892 is that it increases the number of non-official members in the central and the legislative council. However, it maintained official majority in them. So we have seen that under the Act of 1861, Viceroy had started to nominate Indian as non-official members. Now these number of members has been increased both in the central legislative councils and the provincial legislative council. And the second provision is it introduced the limited franchise for filling up some of the non-official seats both at central as well as provincial legislative council. And the third provision is that it increased the function of legislative council. It gave a power to council to discuss budget, and legislative council could address the question to executive. So this was the Act of 1892. We have seen that for the first time it include the provision for the limited and indirect provision of election for fulfilling the some of the non-official seats, and the second is that it increased the power of legislative council by giving a power to discuss the budget and to ask question to executive. And now we'll look the Indian Council Act of 1909, which is also known as Morley-Minto Reform. So the first provision of this act is that it increases the number of seats of legislative council both at central and provincial level. The number of members of central legislative council was increased from 16 to 60. And second provision is that it retained the official majority in central legislative council but allowed the provincial legislative council to have non-official majority. And the third feature is it gave a deliberative power to the members of legislative council to ask supplementary questions and move resolution on budget. And the next important provision is that it for the first time allowed the participation of Indian in executive council. And Satyendra Prasad Sinha was the first Indian to be a member of Viceroy Executive Council. And the last provision of the Act of 1909 is that it introduced the separate electorate for Muslim, and under this the Muslim member were to be elected only by Muslim voters. Thus the act legalized the communalism, and Lord Minto came to be known as father of communalism. So the important feature of the Act of 1909 is that for the first time it made the Indian part of executive council. The second is that it introduced the separate electorate for the Muslim, and the third is that it gave the deliberative power to legislative council to ask supplementary questions and move resolution on budget. And it has retained the official majority only in the Central Legislative Council, but not in the provincial legislative councils. So guys, I hope you understood and find informative. Thank you.